Gaylene, can I hand the podium to you?
I am sticking out like a sore thumb for all kinds of reasons. So I basically kind of semi-bullied my way onto this conference. Like Jim very nicely, negotiating trust-building skills and all that. And the reason why is because I'm aware, given the world that I mainly exist in, that we don't often have a presence in spaces like this. So for the last over almost 30 years now, I've been working in the arts and the creative sectors. I've also worked as a coach and a consultant, and so have had kind of other experience in other worlds. And the thing that I've realized is that these two worlds exist in totally different universes. So I'll do a little straw poll. Who likes art? Raise hands, please. Right, great. Who makes art? Okay, not so bad. Still quite short. Who thinks of themselves as creative? Who doesn't think of themselves as creative? Okay. So anyway, I'm fascinated by this, which is kind of why I bullied my way onto this, because I am interested in the language that we use to call work in these different universes, and even the framing of a conference like this. So I chuckled quite a few times when I read in the documents that the future of work is human. And I was like, were we dogs before? Were we, I don't know, what does that mean? Whereas in my world, in the arts, that would just never even be something that needed to be debated. The only reason you enter that world, in a way, is because you are fascinated what it is to be human. And not only are you fascinated with what it is to be human, you're trying to kind of understand it and articulate it. In many ways, it is trying to find the meaning of something, the meaning of life, the meaning of existence. And when I often come over here, work becomes something that is not about, often it's not about the human experience, it's a means to an end. So most people go into things because they think it will allow them space to then be human, maybe on the weekends or in the evenings or after they retire. So I kind of think I'm fascinated. I have no answers about any of this, really just questions. A couple of things that also came up today that I thought was fascinating in Tom Watson's and the talk about robotics and technology, this idea around reducing toil. I think most people who work in the arts world have no desire to reduce toil. Most of us want to work more, actually. Most of us would like to get the grant so we could make a piece of work. You know, the worst thing is an out-of-work filmmaker. They will drive you mad, right, with their ideas constantly. So actually, I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that often our motivators are quite different, and often where we're leading to what seems as success is very different. Alain de Botton said, which I thought was, most artists' workspaces have the saying, "We are all crazy, we are all idiots," above the door somewhere. Because that concept of understanding what madness is kind of what drives us. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about was about how within that world, this world over here, how do artists work that creates these very bizarre human outputs, whether that be a piece of theatre, whether that be the Pina Bausch piece that I saw on the weekend by English National Ballet, Rites of Spring, some of you may have seen it, it just rips your heart out. There's about 35 young dancers on stage, and they put soil on the stage, and putting the soil as part of the performance, and then they just do this ravaged dance. And anyway, it's completely visceral. Or a film like Moonlight that won the Best Picture Oscar this year. I've seen it 4 times because you watch this film and you barely breathe all the way through it because they've been able to capture something that many of us have barely been able to understand or articulate. So how do you do that? I'm kind of interested in that. How do directors do that? Where do they start? So I make work myself, so some of this is based on my own experience, some of this is based on artists I've spoken to. So what I want to speak about a little bit in my remaining time is the rehearsal space. And it was interesting, someone asked the question to Clive Woodward about the lions and what happens when you have to just go straight on the pitch. It's a very different thing. The rehearsal space in making a piece of work is absolutely critical, and primarily because what it's creating is an environment of trust. That's all it's about. And this is how it's done. I'll give you kind of 4 little tips. The first thing is, everyone agrees we are vulnerable. And the director has to walk into that space and demonstrate that. Because they know that those actors are going to go on stage and are going to have to, for this to be fantastic, they are going to have to bare their soul. So creating a space where vulnerability is okay is the first thing. And how do you do that? Well, you listen. You listen really well. So Roxana Silbert, who can't be here today, who's the artistic director of Birmingham Rep, speaks about 4 weeks they have to put on a piece of finished work. The first 2 weeks, she says nothing. She just listens. And even though she's got lots of ideas that she's obviously brought into that room, she doesn't allow her perception of what should be going on to contaminate watching her crew, her team, explore what this is going to mean for them. So she totally creates this space. So collaboration is at the heart of creating pieces of work, and this is the horizontal thing that we were talking about. So what most directors say is when you say, why do you want to be a director? And they say, because I love actors. And I'm thinking, what does that mean, I love actors? What they're saying is they completely, deeply respect the thing that actors can do, that they completely understand that they can't do. So there's a complete and utter collaborative respect in that space where no one is treading on anybody else's toes. The vision is the director's job. There is a point when the director is going to have to shape that space, but only, Roxana will say, after 2 weeks. By the time that period is done, the trust is built, and then they will follow her to the end of the earth. Because they're like, she's listened, she's got me, she understands me. How many of us do that? How many of us spend at least half of our time making something, just listening? That's all you're doing. So that respect, that empathy, that deep and active listening, and that ability for you yourself to reveal yourself in that space, you have to be vulnerable, or they're not going to go to the ends of earth for you. So how can we be vulnerable with our own teams? How can we show them what this means to us? How can we actively, deeply connect to the people in front of us and love them? Love the people we're working with, not because they're going to do something for us, but because we're actively interested in them as individuals. And how do we deeply respect the process that they're going through? But I can talk more about that later. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gaylene. It's great to hear this idea of a director being someone who loves actors.
Yeah.
Made me think about our relationship to our teams at work and our colleagues. Should we be working to love our colleagues?
Yes.
Or is that crazy?
Yes.
Say a bit more.
Yes.
Or Robert.
Yes.
If it's a Robert answer.
The other beautiful thing that I've heard directors say is, at some point, once you've got your team, you have to work with who's in the room. Mm. So there's no point in kind of going, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Why aren't you built to do that? If they're not built to it, your art as a director is to completely understand what they are built for, and then to draw out the best of them. And I've been directed by Roxana, and she's an absolute genius. She will get you subtly. Suddenly you're doing something that's completely in your comfort zone, but because she's completely watched and listened and gone, that's what you're great at. Why don't you do this? And actually, that's what you're great at. Why don't you do that? And so there's a way in which she has taken her organization through huge transformational change, and she's not lost one person. She says you take everybody with you. And I think that's what artists and directors can do. There's that human sensitivity to go, this is a shared human experience. Yeah. And so it's respecting that.
Thank you. So